Oh, I'm sorry.
So we can start with our question. Go ahead, Sebastian.
I was gonna ask, how much money did that guy end up taking from her?
Oh, I don't remember. It was in the thousands, but not a ridiculous amount.
I was gonna say, because if she had to drop out of school, that had to have been at least 20 grand.
It was thousands, but not a, we're not talking a huge number, right? But it didn't matter for her. I mean, in many ways, it wasn't so much the money, but the social. I mean, imagine living every day thinking this guy is going to send to your family or friends something. That's horrible.
Or when's the next message coming that I need to do something?
Right.
To appease the situation I'm in.
Now, two more things on sexting I want to talk about before we move into other areas, okay? Number one, this doesn't mean that you take a picture in your bathing suit and send it, and it's sexting, all right? And we talk about harassment, okay? Some of the things you say or some of the things that come with it doesn't have to be child pornography, but that also could be illegal. There are a lot of different crimes that I can look at and law enforcement can utilize and say, that's not child pornography, but it's also against the law in any number of different ways. There are crimes that deal with computerized communications, what you are sending via text message or computer to people. Phone, there are laws in regards to just calling and things that you may say or do on the telephone. Stalking, if you are engaging in at least 2 contacts with a person that make that person fearful, all right, and based on the content of your communication, that could be stalking, that's a felony offense. Disorderly conduct, right? At the smallest amount, you could say this is against the morals or values of our community. There's a case that I just issued today where a likely intoxicated person was at a park in Sheboygan, went up to a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old, offered them some alcohol, and then started rubbing between their knee and their middle thigh. Not a sexual assault, but guess what? Disorderly conduct. That's against the morals or values of our community, and it was something that would tend to cause or provoke a fight or disturbance. So just because you may have a picture or video or something you send, or we get back to some of that bullying and internet safety, not everything that you do is going to be sexting, but there are a lot of things that you can do that unfortunately run afoul of the law. Now, I say all these things, but I'm not here saying I want to charge each and every one of you and everyone you know with all these crimes. If you're engaged in the behavior, are you subject to being charged? Absolutely. Would I blink charging anyone for engaging in this type of behavior, especially some of the things I've talked about? Nope. I sleep better knowing that people are charged for that kind of behavior. But we're not looking to go out there and look at everyone's phone, everyone's device. I want you all to be safe. I don't want any of you doing this for the social consequences or for the legal consequences. You got to know legally what's out there because you could alter the course of your life with some of this behavior. Right? But socially, you shouldn't do it either. And you should be there to support friends too. Right? Sometimes there's this perspective out there about guys and locker room talk and hey, it's funny and all that stuff. If you hear someone talking about that stuff, you should be there to say, you know what, not funny, not cool, not okay. Okay? Same thing ladies, right? There can be a lot out there about, trying to compete, trying to be popular. End of the day, guys, that doesn't matter, right? So you got to help there and be good friends for each other. Now, we talked a lot about sexting. We talked about some healthy relationship. We're going to talk a little more about healthy relationship areas. And then we also want to wrap up with some sexual assault stuff. Okay? So I'll turn it over to Cassie.
Going off of that sexting piece, and again, although, what everything the DA said has so much value in it, if this is something that you're engaged in, or you're wondering, is this a healthy behavior? Is this an unhealthy behavior? Feel free to call Safe Harbor. We don't need your name, but you can definitely give us the situation or the hypothetical, and we can kind of help lay some of those options out for you. Okay? In no way, if this is a situation that you may find yourself in, is this a cause that it's the end of the world. It is never the end of the world. There are always options. There may be consequences, but there's always options. Okay? So yes, moving into...
Can I jostle things a little bit?
Yes, jostle away.
So I told you I carry my phone everywhere I go. Law enforcement might need a search warrant for me on a child victim offense. So I want to get into sex assault quick, so if I have to buzz out to help,
Perfect,
then I
yep,
can, okay?
let's go.
So, sexual assault. This is where we start talking about some terms and some names and things, but I know you guys can handle it, all right? What is the age of consent in Wisconsin? 18. So if you are 17 and have intercourse with someone else of any age, is that legal or illegal? How many of you think it's okay? Sorry, I gotta respond to the, okay. All right, let's do this. 17-year-old consensually has intercourse with a 17-year-old. Raise your hand if you think that's okay under the law. They say yes, parents know about it and say, hey, you know what? Here's some protection, here's contraception, use the basement so you're safe, whatever. How many of you say that's okay?
All right, all you shut your eyes and raise your hands if you think that applies. You guys are being so silly. Shut your eyes, all right? Just the example that he gave. Hey, I see you in the back. Shut your eyes.
17 and 17. How many of you say it's okay? The law says it's all right.
Raise your hands high.
There are hands. I see them. More this time than last time. All right.
Open your eyes. Put your hands down.
The answer is no, it is illegal. The only way that you legally can have sexual intercourse with someone is if you are 18 or older and the other person is 18 or older, or you're married and it's completely consensual. Okay? What does consent mean? Yes?
To, if it's a sexual reason, is to do certain acts upon the other person with permission.
With permission. So what does that mean? Just say yes and we're okay?
If both parties are comfortable.
Okay? What if the other person says, oh, come on, you know, you want to, what's the big deal? All that stuff we talked about with the image. Does that make consent if at the end of the day the person says yes?
No, because it is a different part.
That's coercion, right. Consent is a voluntary, enthusiastic, desiring, want to, yes. And that could be verbal, that could be physical. Let's say there's silence. Is silence consent? No. Another case of mine. Again, young 20-year-old woman was at Home Depot. Her washing machine broke, she needed to get a part. Her girlfriend's boyfriend sent her the image of what to look for. She's looking like a deer in headlights lost in Home Depot. So a man in his 40s says, hey, I can help you, helps her find the part, then says, if you need help installing it, I can help you because I'm a landlord, I have all these properties. She's a little creeped out, but she was thinking positive things of the world is wonderful and people are all good. So she said, okay, that's great. But instead of coming in my car, how about you follow me? So she drove to her place, he follows, he gets in, they go in, changes the part, real fast, 5 minutes, all set. He then said, you know, I told you I own a bunch of properties, can I just take a look around the layout? This is really interesting. She said, okay. So she takes him to his bedroom here and this room, and then as she's turning to leave one room to go to the next, he's standing there and he gives her a hug. And he slips his hand under, it was under the shirt, over the bra, grabs her breast. Okay, in her head, yelling, screaming, red flags, whistles, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? She doesn't say anything. That stops. She goes into the kitchen, picks up her phone, pretends she got a phone call, right? You never know it's on vibrate or silent. And she has a conversation with herself, but this guy doesn't know it. Oh, you need my help now? Oh, you can't wait? Okay, fine, I'll be right there. Sorry, my friend just called us to help her move. I gotta leave now. I'll show you the door. They go to the door. He gives her a goodbye hug, grabs her buttocks over her jeans, leaves. What do you think the first thing is that she does after she closes the door?
Cops.
What's that?
Cops.
Not cops. Lock the door. Go take a shower because she felt filthy. And then she calls boyfriend. Boyfriend says, you gotta report this. Okay? This guy's charged with 4th-degree sexual assault, sexual contact without permission or consent. What do you think his defense was? Yeah.
She didn't say no.
She didn't say no. How was I to know that it wasn't consensual? I said, can I come over? She said yes. She was showing me around her place. I just gave her a hug. She didn't say or do anything that made me think it was a no. Law in Wisconsin says you have to get a yes. Silence is not yes. And that get a yes isn't coercion to get a yes. It's an excited, voluntary, happy Yes. Okay, now the aspect for your age group that you're not going to like is it doesn't matter how enthusiastic, excited, openly, happily you say yes, it's illegal. Okay? Now, why is it illegal? Because the law in Wisconsin says you guys aren't at that level where you can make that call. You may be upset. You may say, I've had this boyfriend, girlfriend for years, right? We've been together forever. Our parents know, all that stuff. But I've seen umpteen cases where that happens, and there's a scare of pregnancy, or there's a breakup in relationship, and people turn to cutting themselves or other self-harm, and things get really bad, right? 16 and pregnant, I've watched it, right? It was fun for a while. I had a few of my fan favorites. I had some that I couldn't stand, okay? How many of you think, ladies, you could go home and be a mom right now? Right. Gentlemen, how many of you could go home and be a dad right now? You know, every 2 hours you're away, homework you get done, oh, by the way, you gotta work too. You can make it happen, right? Some of that stuff can happen. And hey, I talked about parents allowing it to happen. There's a statute in Wisconsin called failure to act. If you're responsible for a child, and under 18, you're considered a child by legal definition, and you know that it's happening and you don't try or do anything to prevent or stop it, that's a felony offense called failure to act. Okay? Now, we'll delve into some other areas. Sexual intercourse. Who wants to give me an explanation or a definition of what that would be? This is where we do a barometer of maturity level.
Table in the back, what do you got?
Yeah! Which one?
I really like that neon sweater.
I do too. Take the easy one. How are babies bathed?
A male is reproductive organ of a woman's body.
Okay, that's one. Okay, we can say the penis word, right? Can we say the vagina word? It's tough. Okay. Penis to anus, done. Penis to vagina, yes. There's something called digital penetration. Fingers, finger into vagina is sexual intercourse in the state of Wisconsin. Using an object, that's called sexual intercourse in Wisconsin. What about penis in the mouth? What do you think? That's sexual intercourse.
No matter how slight.
Nope. Any penetration by an object, okay, involving a sexual body part, right? We're talking sexual intercourse. Now, there are some college kids I've talked to that when I said oral, so penis and mouth, that's intercourse, they nearly hit the ground. They had no idea. Okay, but that's intercourse in Wisconsin. Sexual contact, what do you think that is? Legal definition. Oh, now we're quiet. Yes, sir, go.
I guess like touching someone in a section, in like a special area is what I call it.
You bet. Okay, touching. Ladies, breast, vagina, anus, or buttocks. No-nos. Gentlemen, penis, buttocks, your breasts count too. Okay? Wisconsin law. That's fine, Wisconsin law. Now, does it have to be under clothing or over, or does it not matter?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay, what if it's touching breast and it's over bra, short sleeve shirt, long sleeve shirt, sweater, parka, you name it, all that stuff.
Doesn't matter. Still in that general area.
Doesn't matter. If the touching is done by finger or object, whatever it is, and it's done for the desire of sexual gratification or arousal of the person doing it, or if it's to humiliate the person that you're touching, that is sexual contact. Okay? It also doesn't matter if you have someone else do it. Hey, you are going to go do this to that person for me. That can be sexual intercourse and sexual contact. Okay? And remember, for sexual intercourse, doesn't matter about consent. The word yes is meaningless to you guys. Okay? You can say yes all you want, still against the law. So there are statutes on this. You want to pull up some of those. I looked just at 2020 and some of the numbers from our county. We have charged people with underage sexual activity. We have charged people with sexual intercourse 16 or older. We have charged first and second degree sexual assault of a child. And there you're looking at age differences and some other aspects. We've also charged adult offenses. So for adults, there's first, second, third, and fourth degree sexual assault. Fourth degree is that sexual contact. That Home Depot story, right? That was a 4th-degree sexual assault. 3rd-degree sexual assault is intercourse without permission or consent. That's a felony, okay? 2nd and 1st, again, differentiated by a number of different factors. When you're looking at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd-degree sexual assault, you're talking about sex offender registry. Even 4th degree, we can ask for it. 1st and 2nd-degree sexual assault of a child and repeated sex assault, mandatory. You're going to be on the registry. And then you have the misdemeanor assaults as well. And just because it's a misdemeanor for underage activity, guess what? You may have to be on bond, or if you're a juvenile, you're dealing with a social worker. You have restrictions on what you can do and when you can do them. And again, you're altering your life. How many of you guys have ever looked at CCAP? You know what I mean by CCAP? 1, 2, 3. You can go online, you can find this website, you put in a person's name, and you can find out a whole bunch of information about them as it relates to cases. Any criminal case they've been charged with, any traffic case, speeding, failure to stop or a stop sign, right? If they've been sued for money, if there's been a restraining order or injunction against them. So all of that is out there. And when people apply for jobs, what website do you think they like to look at? When you apply for an apartment, what do you think people like to check out? Right? So you can really affect their life moving forward. Are there questions on legal definitions of sex assault, what you can and cannot do? Yes?
It's not like that, but like, what's the difference between like a felony or like a misdemeanor?
Good.
Like that?
Felony means you have the possibility of being sentenced for more than 12 months in custody. And if you get sentenced for more than 12 months, you're serving it in a prison. And there are various prisons around the state, but there's not one in every county. A misdemeanor means you're facing something less, 12 months or less. And if you get incarcerated on that, you're serving it locally. Now, we can cross lines and get real complicated, but that's the easiest definition. The other thing that matters most when it comes to felony misdemeanor is that, again, with that felony, no voting while you're serving your sentence, never own or possess a gun for the rest of your life unless it gets expunged or pardoned, okay? And only some offenses can even be expunged, and it's pretty rare, pretty minimal. And then you're talking potentially registry, because it's more likely to register in a felony, all sorts of different things. So felony misdemeanor is a really important distinction. Other questions? Legal definitions. What you can do, can't do. Kathy, do you want to ask questions?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
What if we have a situation, Joel, where there's somebody who, oh goodness, what's a good one that I want to use? What if we have a different culture in the mix, right?
Good.
Does it matter about cultural context?
What do you think? Okay, see some head nods. It does not matter. If you are legally married in Wisconsin, that's one thing. But if you are not, and it's only cultural marriage, it doesn't matter. The law applies to everybody the same, so it's not going to matter if you have that cultural marriage or cultural recognized by the culture.
Awesome. What if we had a person who had a scholarship come, okay? D1 ride, okay? And they had possession of child pornography. 2 photos.
Not good. So a lot of bad things could happen. Number one, if it's charged, if the person was 18 or older, you're talking mandatory prison. Doesn't matter about the scholarship. You're done. You're going to prison for 3 years at least as a mandatory minimum. Okay, unless something happens with that charge, there's an amendment or something happens, you're done. And that's again where it doesn't matter how good of a person you are, etc. Under certain circumstances, Wisconsin says, go to prison. My old Monopoly references, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're done. And then if you get out, do you think D1 school still wants you? Pretty tough, right? I don't know.
What if, Joel, what if I'm a 16-year-old and I listened to your presentation and I realized that there was something that happened 8 years ago? What are my options then?
Okay.
As far as like something that happened to me?
Yep, so we'll talk about delayed reporting, which is what we're talking about, and reporting right away. Delayed disclosure. How many people think that everyone that's sexually assaulted reports it right away? Yep. I would say it's the number one underreported or delayed reported crime. And there are a lot of reasons for that. They're all legitimate reasons. It doesn't matter if you could still come forward and report. There's something in the law called statute of limitations. Depending on the crime that was committed and other circumstances, there's a time frame by which someone has to be charged or they can never be charged with. For child sexual assaults, we're talking about the victim having to report by the time he or she, as I recall, is 45 or 46 years old. They have all that time to report. Okay? So there are a lot of circumstances where people come to us years and years afterwards, and we investigate, and we can charge and hold people accountable. I like to charge those cases because I have a belief that if you committed a sexual assault, it's likely either not your first or not your last. I appreciate sometimes it may be the first, or maybe it is the last, but oftentimes there are other folks out there, unfortunately. So I like to engage in those cases. So it doesn't matter if it's delayed, and there's nothing wrong with it being delayed. Now, if you are assaulted, you have a lot of options, and Kathy will talk to you a lot about these options. Safe Harbor and I have a little divide, and this is where that divide is. She, when I leave, is probably going to talk to you about, hey, if there are sexual things happening in school or for you or friends now, you got to take care of yourself and that person, be safe and all of that. And that's a really good conversation to have. But I represent the law, and I have to tell you the law says it doesn't make a difference, it's illegal. Okay? The area that we're always in lockstep is we always want you guys to be safe. Okay? If you are a person that is sexually assaulted, and I'll take it as an adult, because if you're a child, there's mandatory reporting obligations where hospital has to be called. Kathy can tell you things that you can say if you want to deal with officers and how you can handle that. But let's say you're an adult, and unfortunately, as I recall it, you guys are in basically the #1 sex assault group, and the #2 group is the one you're graduating to based on age. College sexual assaults are incredibly high. You talk about people being away from home for the first time, freedom, fraternity, sorority, alcohol, drug, all sorts of stuff. A lot of bad sex assaults, okay? If you are sexually assaulted, in our county, we got a great set of cooperation. First of all, you can go to any of the Aurora hospitals, and they are going to be there for you to perform a forensic examination. This is not like a normal, I'm going to the doctor visit, and whatever the doctor or nurse says, I answer and I have to do. This is more like they subscribe it. Here's a menu. Here's what we can do. You tell me what you're comfortable with. First of all, they're going to talk to you, and you can tell them what happened. Then they may say, hey, did the person touch you anywhere? Do you mind if I take a swab of it? And that's getting a little Q-tip, that's just an extra long stick, and rubbing it on you. I've had people say the person bit me here or licked me there, and we found that person's saliva or DNA from those swabs. It's really good. Maybe it was something vaginal or anal, so there were fingers or penis or something inserted. If the person's okay with it, there can be wipes or swabs of those areas. Nothing forced, nothing painful, but an examination. Then there also can be sharing medications. So if there's a concern of pregnancy, there are medications and things that the hospital can give, right? And as a victim, you can go in there and say, I want everything, or I want one thing, or two things. It's completely up to you. They will call someone from Safe Harbor, call an advocate. That is a person who is well-trained at Safe Harbor, and they go there, and they hold hands, and they listen to you. And they will hear and listen to anything you have to say, or they'll just sit there to be there with you and hold a hand and not say a word. Or maybe during the exam they say, hey nurse, can we take a break? I think he or she may want something to drink, or might be hungry. Whatever it is, okay? Then, if everyone's good with it, and again, since we're talking adults, law enforcement can be called. And law enforcement will perform an interview, asking as many questions as they can. Now, a lot of those questions come out like they're accusing you. Where were you? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? They're not trying to accuse you. They're trying to ask questions they expect to be brought up in court, and they're trying to help me get all the information that I need so we can hold the person accountable. And then we send the swabs that you may engage in to the crime lab. We find DNA. We have law enforcement retrace steps. You know, if you say that you were on the bus before, we go and try and find video surveillance from the bus. If you say that you told 2 or 3 friends, we talk to the friends and say, hey, what did the person tell you? And we build this whole case. Now, do you think most sexual assaults are public, or they're on video, or there are a bunch of people watching? How many think most assaults are like that? Right.
We are on Law and Order.
Yeah, they are in Law and Order. It's in a room, typically with no lights, so no one can see it. A lot of times it's alcohol or drug facilitated, so the victim is passed out and wakes up to something in vagina or anus or some touching, right? So we get what we call he said, she said assaults. The jury can rely on statements alone. Our county has been successful having people held accountable for assaults, including sexual assaults, when it's just what the victim came up and had to say, with nothing else, no DNA, no video. There are ways law enforcement can corroborate things, okay?
Mr. DA, I have a question.
Yes,
What if my partner and I are both 20 and we're both drinking and we both can't remember what happened?
doesn't matter.
Who gets charged?
Well, so law enforcement does a full investigation, they ask a lot of questions, and sometimes those college assaults can be challenging, right? So we ask, where were you, what were you doing? We go and talk, were you at a party, who were you there with? And we ask questions like, what did people observe you doing, and when did they observe it? Maybe one gets charged, maybe no one gets charged. It all depends, but we do a lot of work into it. We look at phones a lot. I love cell phones, right? What are people saying, what are people doing? There's an investigative technique called a one-party consent call, where law enforcement has the ability to have the victim call up to the suspect and have conversation and say things like, what happened last night? Or what did you do to me? Or why did you do that? And we record it, and sometimes they say things like, sorry I did that. Okay? So there's a lot law enforcement can do, and we can build cases, but we always evaluate what happened, because our job is not go get a conviction. Our job is to find the truth. Whether the person's guilty or not guilty, we're always trying to find what is the truth, because we want the truth to win out at the end of the day.
And regardless whatever happens with law enforcement, DA, Safe Harbor and organizations very similar to us are always going to be there to help support victims, survivors, family, and friends. Because regardless of what happens in the criminal realm, there's still a lot of trauma there that people need to process. Okay, and that's where we come in.
All right. I'm just holding them at bay here. All right. Questions? Any questions whatsoever? No such thing as a dumb question. My joke is unless it's from a defense attorney, but that's just for lawyers. That's just a fun thing we do. Yes?
Has there been cases where like someone is like wanting to drop the charges because maybe like I don't not like say like the drunk thing
Yep.
and like it got so far but then they wanted to drop the charges.
Yep.
Ooh,
Yep.
I'm gonna jump on this one.
Go.
All right, so again, coming from a college campus and kind of what Mr. Umansky was talking about earlier, there's a certain point at which people are, we're victim survivor focused, that victim survivors have control, and that's if you're an adult. All right, let's preface that, right? Older than 18, okay? So let's say we have a 19-year-old who got sexually assaulted, they want to report to law enforcement, they report to law enforcement, they go get their SANE exam, we've got a kit, we send it in, and they're like, you know what? I don't really think I want that type thing. And this is after that law enforcement has talked to their friends or whatever, and law enforcement has a very good idea that something did happen here, right? And they refer it up to the DA's office, okay? At that point, and Joel, you jump in when I get to your world, all right? At that point, the victim survivor is no longer in the driver's seat and no longer in control, because it becomes the state of Wisconsin versus perpetrator, all right? So as far as when you're talking about they want to drop charges, okay, victim survivors don't have that option anymore, okay? And it's not because we don't trust and we don't want to do a trauma-informed victim survivor focus, but there are many things as why victim survivors would recant. And with children, that skyrockets, okay? We have kiddos, unfortunately, recant all the time. Well, that's another rabbit hole I'll get down. I won't go there.
But
right?
we listen, right? We listen to what you have to say and we understand it. And listen, we get it. Right? One of the things that bothers me the most, right? Someone in your grade or just in high school who is assaulted, usually it's a female, the response from that female is the number one thing they are most worried about the next day is how other girls at school are going to treat that person and the horrible things they're going to say and do about that person. Drives me insane, right? But that is some of the response why people don't want to have anything go forward. And it doesn't stop at high school. There are a lot of people that don't want it out there because they don't want people knowing. And it's just like that whole seeing someone with a phone in the hallway or a group of people at a table laughing. When you're a victim of this and it's out there, your assumption is everyone knows and everyone's looking at me. I can tell you in our county, when we put together a criminal complaint, we don't even use a person's name in it. We identify it as victim 1. We provide the court and the defense attorney the person's name, but it's sealed, which means no one else from the general public can see it. Now, if it goes to trial, someone's got to testify, okay? But very few people actually come to trial, and while they're entertaining on TV, People can't sit on the benches in court longer than an hour without being in pain immediately, okay? So we do as much as we can to protect. And when it comes to getting ready for trial, we meet and we talk and we show you the courtroom and we get everybody ready so they're best prepared as they can be. And I know it's tough. I had a young girl, she was assaulted by her father when she was a teenager. She didn't report it right away. She reported it after her sister committed suicide at college and wrote a note disclosing that the dad was sexually assaulting her too. And after a while, she came forward and said, I'm telling now, okay? When I met with her in my office here after trial, and we had to talk body parts, what did he actually do? Her mouth would open and no sound would come out. We had the trial. She did an incredible job. It was really hard, but she did it. When we were waiting for the verdict, she said, what can we do to make sure he's guilty because he's threatened us and we're terrified that if he's found not guilty, how he's going to hurt us. Well, the jury got the truth and they found him guilty and he got 40 years in prison because he was just a monster of a person, okay? So even though it's hard and challenging, it's what we do and we work with people. Now I say this because I want everyone to feel comfortable reporting and getting law enforcement involved. But I also know that even if you're not able, ready, and willing for law enforcement involved, number one, you've got time. I'd rather do it now than later because there's more evidence, but there's time, and you got great resources that you can get help from to make sure you're okay and you move forward. Not everybody's in a position they're ready to talk now, and that's okay. You got people you can lean on. Okay? Other questions?
Did you say sexual assault was considered if they had intercourse without consent?
Intercourse without consent, but also contact without consent. There's an age issue with contact.
What's that different than rape?
So rape is what we refer to as sexual assault. We don't have the word rape in our statutes, we just refer to sexual assault. So rape would be sexual intercourse is how most people see it, but there can also be contact. And we've talked a little bit about what contact is, what intercourse is, and then age is involved. Okay, good. Anything else before I have to go back to official duty?
I guess kind of the last 5 minutes or ish, talking more of Safe Harbor, some of those things that Safe Harbor offers to individuals, whether it's themselves seeking help or seeking help for somebody else. What are some of those things that people have reached out or things that get done with Safe Harbor as a resource?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So with those yellow and black pamphlets, our most common service that we have is our 24/7 helpline, okay? That's 24/7 day, 365 days a year. There's going to be somebody at that phone, very similar to myself. It may even be me. So if you do call and Kathy answers, I do not know that it's you, okay, unless you tell me, okay? Each one of those individuals that answers the phone is going to be able to lay out options and safety plan with you. Here's a little caveat though, right? If you disclose that you are a minor, right, we're mandated reporters and we do need to report to CPS, right? We report what we know. So let's say when I'm 16 years old and I call the helpline, right, and I say my name is Kathy and I go to Sheboygan Falls, right? I'm 16 and something happened this weekend, right? After we get some more information, right, we can call Child Protective Services and report there was a student named Kathy, she goes to Sheboygan Falls and something happened, a sexual assault happened during the weekend, okay? When it gets to the Child Protective Services, we kind of lose traction there. We don't have a whole lot of say there, okay? That's our #1 service. We also have a child youth services program as well. So we have child advocates who can work with kiddos, right? Now I know you're all not kiddos, even though the law kind of thinks you're kiddos, okay? We do have sexual assault services. So we work with victim survivors. Who's familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Perfect. Okay, a few people. Man, I didn't think I was that old, but I guess. Who's familiar with ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences? Super educational, love it. We use those things to help victim survivors process that trauma, all right? So we have those services. We also do have a counselor on staff that they can work with, okay? And again, this isn't just for victim survivors, but family and friends of this victim survivor. Because when a sexual assault happens, it doesn't just happen to one person, it happens to a family, okay? Did that answer your question, Mr.
Yeah.
Pfister?
You can also call Safe Harbor, instead of saying, I'm Kathy from Falls, you can say, I know someone, and this happened to that person.
Yeah.
What can I do? How can I help? What are some options I can give? You can be calling about yourself, they don't know, and there's then nothing for them to report.
We live in the world of hypothetical. Thank you for bringing that up, I almost forgot. Does anybody have any questions? How old are you guys? I forget. Junior?
We have a mix of freshmen, so 14, 15 to juniors, 17.
Okay. All right, real quick, okay? When you go to college, right, and you're looking for colleges and what colleges you should go or not go to, a good question to ask is what their Title IX policy is. Who knows what Title IX is? Title IX, most people think of sports, the gender equality between sports, all right? Title IX says that they need schools who receive federal funding, which is most of them, right? They need to keep you safe. They need to be able to provide a safe space that your academic education can continue, okay? Check out what that Title IX policy is, all right? What happens if a friend or a family member are assaulted on the campus? What is the campus going to do, okay? What does that look like? Because again, based on statistics, unfortunately you are going to know somebody.
And I think it's so important too that you say, well, and it's the teenage mentality, it's not gonna happen to me, sort of idea, but based upon numbers, stats don't lie, whether it's someone as the individual or knowing an individual, that's going to likely occur in your life, solely based upon numbers. So again, the direct impact, again, might not be to you, but to help somebody else, and that's being just as important to reach out to certain services than anything else, to give assistance to somebody.
Any other questions? Yeah, we love hypotheticals.
If there are things that pop up too, obviously that occur, we discussed in class, you're here about X, Y, and Z, send me an email, we'll talk about it in class. If I don't know the answer, obviously I'm gonna reach out to our two presenters here to get a better response than what obviously I can get.
And Safe Harbor has groups, right, for your ages, younger, older, really just a helpful place. They also will take volunteers, so if you want to help them give back and do things with Safe Harbor, they always love that.
Right now, all of our groups, the one group that we have going is virtual. Okay, so if transportation is a barrier, it doesn't need to be. Okay, so go ahead and reach out.
Safe Harbor also, and COVID is different, but can come to the school and ultimately speak with you at least 5 times without parental permission. And if the issue is something with a parent, they can figure it out, right? So sometimes they can come to school and talk to you here, which makes it easier for you, especially if the issue's at home.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate both of you coming in, spending your time, as well as getting out of the office, seeing some other scenery as well too, given our circumstances. So